Welcome everyone to S1E1, the show where each week we watch the very first televised episode of a different sitcom and rate it just on what we learned from that episode alone, eliminating any knowledge we may or may not have about future episodes. This week we're going to be talking about The Big Show, which ran 10 episodes, one season on Netflix. And we're going to be talking about episode 1, which was called Prototype, which debuted April 6th, 2020. So to start things off, I'm your host, Jay Gags. With me, as always, the guys, Joe, Ferg, Nick, and Gordo. What's going on, guys?
The Big Show.
Shrek, Hulk, Kool-Aid Man, Giant Potato.
All right, so
Terrible sitcom.
So to start things off, The Big Show. Guys, have any of you guys
watched?
watched?
There's an episode where there's something that we all can't stop doing, and this is going to be one where I think we're all just going to keep going.
Well, it's terrible.
All right, get it out of your systems so we can start talking. Guys, The Big Show. Have any of you guys watched it up until you watched episode 1 for this show?
I've seen it a few times.
No.
I have not.
You guys did not watch it?
I watched it. I
in
watched
full.
all of it.
Yes.
Yeah, when this came out, it was right when pandemic first started. It was like April of 2020. So we were a couple weeks in, and everybody had already watched Tiger King, and it was like, oh, what are we gonna do now? So it was like a Friday night. We're like, well, we can watch all of the Big Show, and we watched it all. And then waited a half a year or whatever, and then watched the Christmas special too.
Yeah, I did the same. No, I watched I banged it out in 2 days. I didn't watch it all at once. I watched the first 9 episodes, I think, over 2 days, and then in December watched the Christmas episode. But I haven't revisited it, so it's been a little over a year since I watched it. So yeah, so this show stars WWE superstar The Big Show, who has a family sitcom, and the idea is that it's just him, his wife, and kids. When they first announced this show, I thought it was a reality show that was going to be about him and his actual family, but scripted family sitcom is the way they went. And I don't know, I like the idea on paper.
Something tells me that a reality show about The Big Show and his real family would just be a lot of naps. I feel like this dude just sleeps a lot.
I want to say before we go into this episode where I feel like we're going to just fucking tear this show to shreds. I like The Big Show.
In
as
advance,
a person,
I'm
he
a
seems
big
like a
fan
really
of Big
good
Show.
dude.
Don't come kill me.
I like him as a wrestler. I like him as a person. I want that out there in case he ever hears this. And I watched the whole show, and I'm a big fan. And if it went to a second season, that would have been cool too. Please don't murder any of us.
That was the only that was about the show. Every scene he's in, I just couldn't help just be like, oh, he's trying. Like he is really trying,
So I don't want to get too good ahead with the specifics of the show, because we're going to get into that. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it in past episodes. All 5 of us are longtime wrestling fans. So I think anything that, crosses genres, we would definitely check out. The Big Show has been wrestling for about 30 years now, roughly, right?
He's been in it
sleepily
a long time.
I'd say 25 or so, right?
Yeah, probably about 25. He's had a pretty long career, and
He's been in every major era.
Yeah, and however you feel about him as a wrestler and what they've done with him as far as booking goes, I think he's been a solid performer for a very long time. I think he's been a victim of circumstance and positions he's been put on. But that is, I guess, all stories for another day, because we're going to just be focusing on
like that time that Hulk Hogan fought him in a monster truck and then threw him off the roof of a building.
He's a victim of circumstance, but he also succeeded from circumstance too. He wouldn't have gone far if he wasn't just a big ass dude.
Yeah,
that's true.
So, yeah.
I mean, he's charismatic. He's good in this show because he's got charisma.
He is. He is a very charismatic.
Yeah, I feel like
disagree.
He could. No, I feel like if he just works on his acting chops, he could be a funny actor. Yeah, it's just you can see him struggling through learning how to act while he's acting. And
I don't really get that. I don't think he's the issue of this show. I think it's
I don't
the
either.
kids and that wife who just like,
no, don't get me wrong.
What do you think, show?
I don't even. It's the writing.
Yeah, I
That's
think
what
so
I
too.
think.
And
Yeah,
again,
does
I think
not
we're getting
help.
very ahead of ourselves. We haven't even gotten into the opening shot yet. So, we'll
Can I
discuss
just
it as we
talk
go
about,
along. But I do think
not to get
that's a
super
big
far
point.
ahead. My biggest issue of the show is that they all call him Show,
Show,
or Big
yes,
Show,
yeah,
and it
that bugged the
drives
hell
me
out of me.
nuts.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
all right.
dad,
So
not
hold
honey,
on.
not Paul.
No.
like,
So he's a stepdad.
No,
No, he's
No.
the
Yes,
dad
he
to all
is.
the
No.
kids.
He is a
they're half.
stepdad.
No,
No.
he's not.
No.
They're
No.
half
That's
brother and
his-
sisters.
No,
It's
that's
those are
multiple-
his daughters.
Multiple wives.
he
all
had
the
one
same,
daughter,
all the
Two
same
wives,
dad.
all the kids.
originally Lola, and then again, we're getting very ahead of ourselves. But he had one daughter with a previous woman, who was the one who's moving in, and then he had two daughters later with the woman he's now married to.
Oh,
We
I
started
thought
on
that
that,
they
too.
were stepdaughters.
No,
So
they're
that's why they would call
stepsisters
them
because they have different mothers.
They're
Ah,
stepsisters. Yeah.
Okay, all right, that makes more sense because
They're
I thought that
stepdad
they were just
actors.
calling them Show, like you
Or
would,
they'd be
maybe
half,
a
right? Half,
stepdad.
they'd be half sisters.
Half sisters. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Half
Sorry.
sisters,
Yeah.
yeah.
Half sisters.
They even say it in the episode at one point.
Yeah.
I'm going to live with my half sisters.
But so before we get too much more ahead, let's get right into the beginning of the show. Okay, very first scene, we see a plane flying in the sky, and not to, I don't want to rip apart every little aspect of the show, but it was a
I
very
do.
very fake looking plane in the sky situation, and I was like, there's got to be enough stock.
Really gave you an
footage
idea of
this.
the budget.
you got the quality of the show you were gonna get from
Yeah.
that point forward, and it was
Yeah.
very bad.
Yeah.
to see.
All right, so from this point, we cut to the inside of the plane where we meet the oldest daughter, Lola, or as we're to find out is the oldest daughter, and she's sitting next to an elderly woman on a plane, a very spacious plane, by the way. It's probably the first thing I noticed. Is I was like, I don't think I've ever had that much room on a plane. in
Only
my
one way
life.
to shoot.
Can I
the plane.
just say, I think
She's gotta
Lola
be
was
first
probably
class,
the
though.
best,
It's a big
the best
show.
actor on the show. I
Yeah,
thought
she
was
did a pretty good
talented,
job.
and that old lady she was talking to was really bad. I'm sorry, I don't know what she was,
Yeah.
I
But
thought you were
it
gonna say
reminded
that
me-
she was the most talented person on the show.
but it's
But,
like it remanded me of like an All That skit from back in the day. Like,
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean,
I
and
thought
again-
the same
Cold
fucking
finger.
thing. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Finger's
think there was a
cold.
point where that
really cold.
from the establishing shot with the exterior of the plane and then to the interior of the plane being a little unrealistic as far as how it looked, that didn't really set you up for success right away, and it doesn't feel natural because
They
of
were
it.
in first
From-
class.
Yeah,
They were
for
in
me, that would be
first
first
class.
class, right? The
Well, like
big
first
Joe's
act.
flying his daughter from Minnesota to Florida. He's gonna get her first class.
That
She's
makes
gonna have a
sense.
spacious plane ride. At
He's
least
a
you can
s-
take that away, right? They're
Yeah,
not poor.
he's
And
a
I'm gonna-
celebrity.
I really
and
want to circle back to this soon. This first class purchase, but we'll get there.
Okay. And at this point, she's making conversations with the older woman who starts us by mentioning how she went about naming her dog. I believe is the opener, at least the first thing that they're talking about. And then it gets into what are you doing flying into Tampa? And that's when she explains, well, my dad's recently retired. And, so now I'm going to live with him. And she asked what he did. And it was like, oh, is he, she says that he's an entertainer. She's like, oh, like Celine Dion, which it's like, okay. I felt like for the old lady
That's
telling
the
the joke,
reference.
yeah, I feel like where they went with a super elderly woman, that maybe you'd want to go with someone who was popular, not in the 90s.
The
but
writing should have been,
further-
like Frankie Valley.
yeah, something
Like,
a
that's
little
what
older.
the joke should have been.
Was that a real old lady or was that a young person in makeup? Because
No,
it
we-
sounded.
we-
You think
no,
they use
by the
special
There's
effects
dialogue-
pizza
makeup?
face from all that.
No,
wearing
but it
costume.
sounded like a young person doing an old person impression. Like,
No,
oh,
she-
well, like Celine Dion.
I haven't
Like,
done any extensive homework on her, but I think they got a genuine older lady. I don't think they did any heavy special effects makeup here.
I
To,
hope she wasn't.
I think it was
paid
out of
well.
They
budget.
apparently picked her up at the Celine Dion convention,
and this was here's a problem that I had.
which makes
with
sense
what's
because this
going
show
on.
does act very much like the Titanic. It does not go
So-
well.
So what happens is when she asks like, oh, an entertainer like Celine Dion, they go right to the clips of various WWE.
Oh, you mean they go right to,
where's the big show? And then it just shows clips, and I was like, so it bothered me for a couple of reasons. One, I thought they should have just shot something themselves so everything like lined up and like looked the same, because you could have just brought one of those cameras to a live event and had just so it flowed right.
the film
But
stock was right.
additionally, half the clips they used were from before television went widescreen, and they just like left it in the old standard television dimensions.
Yeah,
It
in
was
the
like you
square.
have enough footage of him. In
No,
HD.
unfortunately, I think they did
No,
that
that-
because it was the when he was most athletic. Like you
No,
can't
but
do a
it didn't show
2018
anything
version of
crazy.
Big Show. Like
We went to HD television like over a decade ago. You have plenty of footage of him in widescreen HD you can use, and you use grainy footage from the late 90s that
Yeah,
wasn't
because
even
that was
spectacular.
Vince McMahon. It's
No.
100% Vince. He was like,
It was
make him look
showing
like
he was iconic.
shit.
Like
we can give him
he's
clips, make him look
been
like
wrestling
shit.
But
no,
you know what you
because
could
that
also
was
do?
career highlights. That was career highlights of the Big Show. I mean,
They had him in
showed
ECW. That's not a career
Yeah,
highlight.
they
it's
just
not a
used
career
old
highlight.
clips.
There's
Yeah, it
nothing
wasn't
from
anything spectacular.
There's
He
no
won-
giant.
that was him at Wrestle. They showed the big one of him wrestling at like WrestleMania. They
Yeah, but you
showed-
know what? They've had WrestleManias in HD that he's been in for years too. That they could have.
He
used
didn't
clips
do
of.
shit in those.
Doesn't he's in?
He
them.
won the battle
Doesn't
royal
matter.
like
You
5
just
years
the
have
ago.
one
to
that
see
they
him
used.
chokeslam someone.
Okay, yeah,
That's-
we're over analyzing it, but it's a 5-second cutaway that they're using clips of, and they just use
We were
grainy
12
old
minutes in,
clips.
and we're still yelling about
Yeah.
the flame.
And at the very least,
Could
what
use
they
clips
could have
of
did
Knucklehead.
is they could have cropped the video into at least that aspect. Like it's just a nitpicky thing, but like
you know what,
There's
Jay, make
no
your own
reason.
Big Show then.
um,
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind. I just think again when you have the budget and means to
It's the
put this
Jay
together,
Show.
it's like that's extremely lazy and sloppy, and that bothered me above and beyond like all the bigger things that we'll probably get into. Like just right off the bat, that rubbed me the wrong way because I just didn't like the approach.
It's an
But-
issue with Netflix where they will put so much time and so much money into being like, this is a compelling 45 minutes about a guy waving a flag around trucks on an ice road, like, and you're watching it and it's so well done and you're compelled to see what's going on next. And then the second they try to do a sitcom, like if you go back in our archives and listen to us do Country Comfort, which is maybe the worst television show I've ever seen in my entire life. They just
Until
seem to put
this.
so little effort into these.
That's what I'm saying when we talked about Country
Yeah.
Comfort. There's no incentive to be good. They buy a season at a time.
Yeah,
right?
We talked
I
about this
think
before.
the
This is-
ranch is
yeah.
good, man. I talk a lot of shit about it. It starts terrible, but the ranch they got right by the end. Do you think they would have learned
But-
by that?
No, the
But
ranch
that's
does have
just-
some good stuff.
the thing is, and we again, if you've listened back to our Country Comfort episode, we talk about this, and it's the same logic applies, and Nick just touched on it. The way Netflix formats a show is just different than other standard networks because they buy a show on concept and then they create the entire season, and there's not a lot of room for moving around.
Do you think this was already made by like WWE Productions already made it and then sold it to Netflix, or do you think like Netflix contacted
could have been.
WWE? And
I
then-
don't know
I
necessarily.
actually think this would have been worse as a WWE production.
Maybe
I
Oh
don't
yeah, they
know if
can't do
that's
that
possible.
either. Legends House
Yeah.
was so bad.
I'll say this just based on what we saw. It
Ah,
felt a
so-
lot like other Netflix shows, so I would venture to guess that it was standard Netflix.
This was actually one of the production companies was WWE
Oh,
Studios.
for sure. Well, obviously their names on. They're going to be they're going to
Yeah.
be producers
So, yeah,
on it,
just
but
from
we're
the
talking about the
fact-
order at which it was made.
Just the fact that it was they were able to use footage. They were going to wedge their name in there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
obviously
okay.
they were
Yeah, that makes
licensing their own
sense.
talent.
Yeah.
Like anytime
I
a
just wanna
WWE
know-
superstar's involved, they usually get a producer credit. It's not a big deal. You're just putting your name on something.
But who at Netflix said, you know what the world wants? A sitcom about the Big Show. Like,
And I'm so
of
glad
all
they
the
did.
interesting wrestlers in the world, why did they pick him?
I don't
Well,
know. 'Cause
availability.
just
in
retired.
theory, I
wanted
love
to,
it.
and-
I like this.
Like, oh, it's
Everything
funny
else
because
around
he's
it
big.
works.
Like,
Again, no, I don't have a problem with it being the Big Show. I think
Yeah, I
all the,
don't either.
all
I
the
don't
real
either.
problems were execution.
I don't have a problem with it. It's just a strange of all the well-known crazy wrestlers. Why did they choose him? Is what I'm getting
Well,
at.
you
Probably
think about
because-
it,
Okay, so let's
guys.
think of some other versions of this show that'd be fun, like the Rey Mysterio show. Like, what would you be doing? He's like in the mask.
That's on
the whole
El Rey.
time.
He's just Wilson the whole time hiding his face.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
I think it's a combination of him retiring right around at that time and him being a big enough name and having enough recognition where Netflix can kind of hang their hat on a celebrity.
Like,
that
oh
they
shit, Hogan's
probably
racist.
didn't have
Who's
to-
next? Big Show.
Well, I
you gotta
mean,
think-
how much do you think they realistically paid him compared to a Rock or
So-
compared to a Stone
so
Cold?
here's the
sure he got a
thing.
good
You don't
paid
think
out of this.
Foley would have been more interesting?
No, no, no.
But
No,
the-
Mick
no.
Foley's show was bad.
They gave Foley a reality, and that's the thing. You got to consider a bunch of things, and this is you're
Chris
pretending
Benoit
that
show.
like the Big Show, from what I understand, has been pitching to have a show or do something for a long time.
Okay,
Netflix
that
didn't-
explains a lot.
I don't think Netflix called WWE and said, Vince, we desperately need a wrestler to fill the role of this show. I think the pitch was, this is the big show. We want to base the show around him. It wasn't that it could be any wrestler. So that
gentle giant who has kids is a good premise for a show.
So here's the thing,
Giant
too.
Gonzalez show.
You have to, I think you really have to consider the demographic of wrestling, right? It's not us. We're not the target demographic. It's the preteens and young teens who are most interested in it. And if they could pitch, if you could pitch it to Netflix that was who you were going to grab in this, then yeah, the substance doesn't really matter.
But let's move on a bit because we're going to get into a lot more stuff.
Let's get off this plane.
Yeah, we're still on the plane.
So
we're taking a long way to
minutes, everybody.
Right. So so as we conclude this plane ride, really the last thing that happens, they cut back to her after the clip show of all the old footage of the Big Show wrestling from 20 years ago in standard television resolution, was just Lola going, yeah, like Celine Dion. And now we're going to cut right to the first time we actually see the Big Show, and it's him and the youngest daughter. Again, I do this a lot. I'm just going to say the character's name sometimes because you're not always introduced to them right away. So the youngest daughter is JJ. So it's Big Show and JJ, and he's braiding her hair and doing a very terrible job.
I gotta say, I don't like the shit on child actors because they're trying. And, you know, she is probably the worst child actor I've ever heard. Like,
no, there was at least every 4 worst child actors in Country Comfort.
She makes them look talented. Like,
I disagree. I
disagree on this one.
I disagree. Yeah.
I don't think
if she started singing Everly
Watch
Brothers
it again.
song,
She screams every line. She doesn't say them. She screams them all.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it again for.
Right. Well, listen. We're gonna get into. There is a lot with her, and I have some points that I'm gonna bring up later as we go along too. But yeah, I think there was a hope in this show. Again, me speculating from watching, but I think there was a hope that she was going to be a breakout character. They gave her a lot of last lines in the scene. They gave her a lot of the jokes, and they thought she was going to be this like budding star that came out of this show. That's my belief of what they thought of her. And I think they forced
her spinoff be the Little Show.
Yeah. So I think they forced her in a lot of the episode where it wasn't natural in hopes that she would become a bigger thing. And but because of that, maybe set her up to fail and set the show up to fail.
Well, I mean, also to be fair, this is season 1, episode 1.
Right. And
because we don't know how the series progresses. She very well could.
Right. But if we look at this episode alone, there's a lot of examples, and we'll get onto them as we go along with the story, but he's braiding her hair, and, you know, there's this moment where, you know, she doesn't like how it goes, and he's telling her like, well, I used to braid Mick Foley's hair all the time and he used to love it. And that was like it didn't take very long, right? Like he was in there for 2 seconds and they threw in like a goofy reference for wrestling. But again, I mean, this kind of goes back a little bit to what Nick was talking about earlier with the target demographic and stuff. And they're doing this very light comedy for it. The way this show was shot felt like a Disney program. It felt like Disney programming or old Nickelodeon programming, and where it was very much made for a younger audience. It's not really adult level of like joke telling
oriented.
And stuff.
Yeah. So watch That's So Raven. It's the same type of writing.
Exactly. So it has this very Disney feel, but
that's a good point. Yeah.
But when you're doing
Nick mentioned earlier, but we're not the target demographic for this show.
Right. So,
like,
but
we're not the audience. We're shitting on this because this show is not for a bunch of 30-year-old disgruntled guys. Like, this is not who this is for.
But now we're referencing all wrestlers from the 90s, and like those kids aren't going to get those jokes either. So are they maybe just sneaking a few in so we have a few jokes to hang our hat on?
I mean,
Dad's watching.
I think it's the parent joke, right? Where they make the funny joke in the cartoon for the parents to get.
The show's for the kids, but the hope is that the parent at least enjoys it while they're watching it. Maybe is the approach that they were taking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that joke was a little like, and it was like the delivery that didn't really do it for me.
I think that was probably because, as we know, Mick Foley's on the show later down the line, but we won't get into that. But I think they were just trying to set up this character who's actually a real person.
I don't really. I just think they were looking for a goofy wrestling joke to pump in right away, and whoever necessarily would have plugged. But the other thing that bothered
I don't want
me
to take
with
this show seriously enough to not break our format, but there's an episode later on where they're like, let's get more wrestlers in, and they get Mark Henry and Mick Foley.
I was gonna say, I'd be so surprised if Mark
no
Henry
little
doesn't make
kid
it.
is gonna be like,
episode,
oh
right?
look, it's Mark Henry and Mick Foley. Like little kids aren't gonna know them.
So let's not get too off format, but the other thing about that joke that didn't sit right with me, and we talked about the Big Show's acting abilities, which I do think a lot of it was on the writing and a lot of it could have been on the direction that he was given, but he told that joke about Mick Foley and then looked off and like looked up and smiled, and it was like a pause for the joke to breathe and get a laugh, and like he didn't deliver it right because like he's telling you, okay, now you laugh. You're like, so when you just tell the joke and then just stop and there's like nothing going on, like you're just waiting for laughter, and it wasn't funny enough to earn the laughter. I think if you delivered that, a little bit more matter of fact, and while she's complaining about, well, Mick Foley used to like it when he did it, and just kind of kept going about it, it would have been like a nice little under, tone joke, but it was meant to get this big burst that wasn't going to come from it. Right after that,
and
the wife
didn't
walks
work.
in. No,
nothing works in this.
Yeah,
and then Mick Foley told him to go to hell in a cell.
Wife walks in, and right off the bat, how's my big show and my little show?
Wedging it in. Also, does anybody remember who did this girl poke out for? Is you? For you? Wow, Jesus Christ! Who
did Nick poke to this girl?
Yeah.
Who did this girl stand out? What is happening to me? What other show did this girl stand out from?
The little kid or the wife?
The wife.
She was in something else. You're saying?
Oh yeah, a reoccurring character on a very popular show that we've done.
Yep.
Oh.
Friends.
No.
No.
As a guy.
That 70s
She
show.
was Fez's crazy girlfriend on that 70s show.
Big Rhonda?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, not Big Rhonda.
I don't remember.
She was the one who was
I
like,
forgot about Big Rhonda.
it was crazy because she was really pretty, and they were like, damn, Fez, like, and then they found out that she is like out of her mind, and I think tried to kill him at one point.
That, yeah.
Okay. I don't. I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm a diehard that 70s guy. I watched a lot
Big
of it.
Rhonda would have fit
religiously.
better.
But yeah, so she comes in, and
It's Big
I'm sorry to anyone who made it this far and is just like, please stop doing it.
This
but
one's
it's gonna come up.
sorry.
I apologize
do we
for nothing.
even need to go beat to beat, or should this just be an hour?
I was
of the
just
five
gonna
of
say
us
that.
being
Do we
like,
really
what
need
the
to
hell,
flow
man?
through this show?
No, I
like
think you
this?
need to get through the show because we got to analyze what it is. You can't just talk why you do and don't like something without getting into why you.
All
do
right,
or don't
get
like
into it.
something. So I keep trying to.
Well,
In this moment, we find out the wife starts telling Big Show why she just got banned from a Starbucks because she was going on a jog and couldn't. She was trying to jog through the drive-through to get food and got into like an argument with the manager. And the Big Show's only response to it was to just be Oafy dumb dad, and he's like, "Oh, they always hook me up with day-old cake pops." And it's like, shouldn't you be a little upset that your wife just caused a giant scene to the point where she just got banned from Starbucks? Like, it's like that's the only thing that goes through your mind is that I don't get
Done a
free
line
old
like,
cake
great,
pops
now we're
anymore.
gonna be on TMZ again.
Yeah, it should be like just a little bit more weight. I get it's a upbeat show, but that's like actually like a big deal that you just got banned from the local Starbucks and the whole family can't go anymore. And
To be fair, here's the
fair.
other deal: Starbucks and places like that give their day-old food to homeless shelters. So the Big Show is ostensibly going and saying, "Fuck the homeless people! I want cake pops, even though I'm a
It's the
millionaire."
cake
And
pop.
there's a bunch of homeless people at the shelter being like, "Man, I could go for some sweets right now," and the Big Show is just sitting there eating his cake pops. And took them away from
He's
them.
just punching homeless people.
And now this is when he finds out, or is told, well, you're not gonna be able to go there anymore unless you wear a disguise. That's when he stands up and you really get the full grasp of how big he really is. And he's like, what am I gonna, disguise myself as? And the daughter's like Shrek, the Kool-Aid man, like he gives all these options of big ogreous type.
You know what I thought about during this scene too was if this show for some reason lasts a while, the wife is going to have permanent neck injury because she has to look straight up to have a dialogue with him. It's crazy.
Taco neck.
Yeah.
yeah.
So we also find out at this point the wife can't go with him to the airport to pick up Lola, which he's upset about because he's really like looking forward to this moment. His daughter's coming to live with them for the first time, and he really wants everything to be perfect. While she's coming to like console him and explain that it's going to be fine regardless, she climbs up the chair, which I actually thought that was kind of funny to like kind of get on level with them, because she just walks up the chair to be face to face with him. And that was I don't know, a cute moment. If we're going to give any highlights, that I thought was pretty good.
They should have had it so that she's also banned from the airport.
And then
at least have the Starbucks thing like makes sense. Like,
oh yeah, like I can't go to the airport with you. I'm banned from the Starbucks. Yeah, it could be something.
Yeah.
Like that.
He's like, please, you give me day-old airplanes.
Yeah.
And instead she wants instead she wants to sell a haunted house, which Big Show confirms was proven.
Yeah,
it was
weird. Yeah. So she's she does real estate, and she just kind of got like the listing for this house that's regarded as haunted. And in her mind, it's, if I can sell this house, then it's going to mean a lot for me, because, it's seen as a kind of impossible territory to get rid of this one. And that's, I guess the goal is, if I sell the house, my face goes on a bench. And the Big Show tells her that, I've been on a bench before. All it is, butts all day long. ADB, all day butts. And then
it was at this point I almost shut it off, because you missed with a butt joke on me.
If Nick can't laugh at a butt joke, then
yeah, you've hit one down the wrong line.
Yeah, something's
also
not landing.
We watch a lot of sitcoms. This is no knock on real estate agents. It's an important job. People need to live in places, but that's like the go-to sitcom job. Somebody's always a real estate agent, or halfway through a sitcom where they have to give somebody a new story arc. 5 seasons in, they're like, they're taking their real estate license exam. Like, it's
a reason to not be at an office every day.
It's also a storytelling thing where you can meet other people that come in, like celebrities and stuff. I'm buying this house, and then you bring someone else in. Like,
sure, it's so overdone.
I feel like there's probably not a lot of thought that went into it. To be completely honest, they probably just it was like it was probably just a pick a job situation, and that's kind of what they landed on.
Which is funny, because in theory she doesn't need to work either, right? He was a successful, he was a veteran, and still,
that's why she's a real estate agent, because they're
valid,
seriously, their livelihood does not depend on her selling houses. They're set. So if she sells
just
houses,
something for her to do.
Personal, exactly. It's for personal satisfaction.
Well, this goes right back
and
to
they have
one of our early episodes.
A very nice regular house in Florida.
This is what I wanted to get back to later, if Jay can get to the part where they're discussing the bedrooms.
Believe me, I'm trying. But to go back, this is no different than when you go back to when we did the I think it was our 3rd episode, was Home Improvement. It's the same exact thing. Jill doesn't need to work because Tim has a successful job. She wants to work, and she wants to be successful at what she does. And this is pretty much parallel to that. It's pretty much the same exact situation.
Yeah, but this, go ahead. Sorry.
But then, JJ wants to go to the airport because she's really excited at this idea of having her big sister and finally getting a big sister. And then enters Jan Brady. Mandy, who is now the middle child, because the bigger sister's coming in. Because with this family now and his current wife, he has 2 children, and now the oldest sister from a prior is coming in. So now she's going from big sister of the house to middle child. And she says that this is going to give her a case of MSS, which is middle sister syndrome. Big missed opportunity, because they could have just used the word, sibling instead. That would have also worked, and worked on both ways. Joe is the resident middle child on our panel. Is middle sibling syndrome, is that a thing?
No, you just ease into being sort of left alone. Yeah. They care more about the other 2.
Joe's not the person to ask, because he's not a normal human.
Well, maybe that's why. Maybe what
does that mean?
Maybe the middle child syndrome that he developed is why he lashes out with the punk rock and all the wacky stuff.
Joe would always just kill the power to the house and goes, "Anybody got a flashlight?"
But
it's the flashlight.
But so to cheer her up in the situation, the Big Show wants to play doctor, which I thought was she was maybe a little old for that to be the resolve. And it's this family game where they're all role playing, and JJ, the youngest child, just sits on her father's shoulders and acts like a monster craving psycho monster.
I thought this was the funniest thing in this.
No, this made no sense to me.
No,
And
no, it made me laugh and go, what the fuck is this? But
well, that was the thing. It was like, this seems like something that if JJ was upset, you would do for her so she could have fun and be like, I want candy and be a monster. Why is this the thing that makes Mandy happy when she's upset? Like, I was very, very confused by that.
Run, it's giant JJ.
Yeah.
It's like, what is happening right now?
I said the same thing, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't laughing out loud at that.
I don't know. I was
It's
very
like
confused.
it was written by Vince McMahon.
The
Probably
audience
why I was
sense of
laughing out
humor,
loud.
like-
Which is Gordo's sense of humor, yes.
Which is,
it
yes.
tracks perfect.
I was gonna say.
The only thing that was missing would be like her like farting on him. Like, ugh.
So I mean, they're
That
trying to
didn't
establish
happen
like
in the
this,
episode. You said it, and Gordo belly laughed. That's how-
they're trying to establish this like family dynamic between everybody, and like, you know, what goes on in their house in the everyday life. But I don't know. I just that was all very weird and whatever. But that was the last scene until we got to the title screen. There was no full on intro. It was just the title screen. It just says the Big Show, and that was it. We then cut to some shots of Tampa real quick to establish where we are again, and then gets back to the house where the parents are discussing that they want to break the news to Mandy that she's going to have to move in with JJ, and they're both afraid to do that.
That bothered me too. Just
Yeah,
fucking
me too.
Grab her and throw her into the room. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, it was like, you know, they're trying to create conflict for the episode, but I kind of see like you don't want to break the news. It's obviously unfortunate news. It's also something that you would establish before the day she's flying in, because ideally you'd be setting up these rooms so it's ready for her
it's
to
just
to
so
move into.
fucked
was she
up.
supposed to move into her already like furnished, like this girl already furnished her room?
Yeah, it
She's
was
gonna
like there was
take
just
over her
no
stuff,
there was no
like-
thought behind it. Like
I think
just
it's
didn't make
super
sense.
shitty. That's like super shitty to do. And why does he not have another bedroom or a basement or a furnished attic? There's no reason
he
the
has enough
Big
money to buy a
Show
bigger house.
in a
lives
good
in a
good
fucking
sitcom,
three
that would have been
bedroom.
the solution. But
in
Yeah.
Florida too, where
Isn't a
houses are
good
like
one.
$40. Like it doesn't make any sense to me that it was a forced plot device that made no sense whatsoever.
Because it looks like those bedrooms are already kind of the attic level, right? There was like nowhere to go up, and
Florida.
most Florida homes don't have
houses-
basements, right?
No,
I
they don't have
That's something
basements.
to say about that
and-
house too, because I have a problem with that house in a different scenario that we'll get to later on.
I was going to say though, as a person that lived in Florida, very few 2-floor houses. Very few. They're all mostly ranch houses, unless you have a lot of money. Then you have
Which he should.
a second floor, which
Yeah,
you
I
should.
mean, he falls
You
in
don't
that category.
need a lot of money in Florida. The
He's rich and
housing
lives in
market is
Florida.
super cheap in Florida.
And they do
Sure.
talk to Mandy and tell her, and he tries to deliver the news. They're both afraid to tell her, and you know,
Gonna
she
like her
just
silent treatment.
yeah,
something
she just
like
gives
that,
a really angry stare the entire time, doesn't say a word, and he just keeps re-delivering the news, but tries to go easier about it each time, and then basically that just ends. She walks off, and he's so shook by the moment of his young daughter just staring at him that he needed to be consoled by his wife with a hug.
It's are they trying to do the whole like elephant being afraid of a mouse like scenario?
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what's going on.
yeah.
They're trying to give him a lot of layers to be like, he's this giant man, but he's, you know,
Got a
easily
giant
scared by
heart.
his daughter. And yeah, cuts to the Big Show in the car, where JJ snuck in the back, because these, you know, she established earlier her desire to pick up Lola, and
And also because it's the most generic thing you could do in a TV show.
yeah,
Is your kid hiding in the back of the car unsuspectingly.
under all these balloons.
The amount
another
of
thing I
school
noticed is-
skipping in that show too.
And why is the car so small? Again, like he's a giant man. Like I know most cars are gonna look small when he's in it, but like that was not a large car at all. Like, why didn't he have this like gigantic, like, you know, 3-tier
Everybody needs
SUV
an
with something you could like
automobile.
breathe in?
Thank you. I was just gonna say, Ferg. It's like a Simpsons joke. It's like
He finds
like
like
a clown car
the sides of my
scenario. Yeah, yeah.
automobile.
Everybody's got to drive an automobile.
like he should be in like a Navigator or some giant SUV
Like an
that he can
Escalade.
like spread out in. Escalade, something.
Yeah.
He has the money and he's humongous. He's not gonna be driving in a Pinto.
And also, the only reason he doesn't get mad at JJ for like sneaking in the car when she's supposed to be at school is because she brought a confetti cannon. And like to him, he's
Don't
so
get that
like,
either.
it's like he's so like, ooh, a confetti cannon. So like now all is forgiven. Like it's okay that your daughter's skipping school because you get to see confetti. So from this point we get to.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna be excited about something, confetti's a thing,
I guess. But so now we finally get to the front of the airport where a police officer recognizes him as that wrestler guy, and then he's like, John Cena, and then his response is, do I look like I wake up twice a night to moisturize? Which is like, I felt like was an inside joke between the two of them that he snuck in the show, because it was like, I think for all the John Cena jokes,
you could have, John.
Like he could have easily been like, if I was John Cena, how do you see me? Like, something.
Yeah, that would have been the joke I would go for if it wasn't something weird.
Yeah, that's also a meme. Like everybody on the internet, even if you're not a wrestling fan, you can't see me joke.
Exactly. Like for
right,
a show that's
cereal
like
boxes
tells very simple jokes, they miss the most obvious opportunity for like a really easy John Cena joke everyone would actually understand.
That's also too. The Big Show goes, I do anything for the police.
Right. Well, so yeah, because that's after the daughter like announces who he is. And
I do appreciate though, that's the only other wrestling like reference they really make.
I think they toned it down at that point.
So I appreciate that they don't jam it down your throat. If I give them any credit.
I want to say the Undertaker gets mentioned later on, and that was the only other one I can think of.
I may have missed that one, man.
I don't remember that.
I think it was
but they were digging themselves a grave the whole time, so I guess that makes sense.
but then she after she explains to the cop who he actually is, asks for an autograph. The cop asks for an autograph, and that's when he goes, well, yeah, I do anything for the police, as you said earlier. And the cop goes, anything? So like something goofy's coming up soon, but
fired.
Also like
this guy would be immediately fired. His gun is like 2 seconds from the Big Show's hand as he cradles him like a baby. The people are taking pictures. That guy would be kicked off the force immediately, and rightfully
also,
so.
How do you claim to be a big fan after just identifying him as the wrong person to begin with? You can't say you're a big fan after that. You didn't know who he was.
True.
Yeah. And then but this enters Lola exiting the airport, still talking to this older woman, and she explains a little bit more about what's going on. Her mom got a job in Belgium, which is why she has to move. Was either move to Belgium or move with dad in Florida, and she was excited about the weather. And she also
made the wrong choice, by the way. Would you choose Belgium or Florida? Gordo.
Florida.
Belgium.
Okay,
I mean, life's
Belgium. I mean, there's a very real possibility Belgium could be in the future.
Gordo, you're
for me.
Like a European traveler. Ferg, it makes sense that you'd say Florida.
I mean, if I were
the Florida,
I bet Belgium is beautiful.
Belgium is beautiful.
You get fat from all the chocolate.
I would. Don't chase me. I got the belly full of chocolate. No, I'd probably choose Belgium in my younger days, and then Florida in my older days, because I don't want to be cold. I get cold easily. Not a lot of meat in these bones.
She's giving you a lot about what's going to come up in this episode, right? And it's too obvious, because she's like, well, I really like the weather, and then on top of it, she goes, and I'm really excited to see my new room and to be in the girls' hockey team. And you're like, aren't you a little old for like the one thing you're excited about is like seeing your new room, or like I'm getting my own room? Like, why is that the one thing that comes to mind by moving to Florida? I assume you had your own room before you.
I was gonna say that would only make sense if she had to bunk up with a sister in the other place or something.
Right, and
it
looks like it looks like it's just her and mom, right? So you had your own room. Why is this like the cool thing about moving to Florida is finally having your own room?
She's like 15. She should be like excited about boys and stuff. She should be like, I'm excited for a mulleted El Camino driving Florida rat.
Yeah.
Like, she shouldn't be worried about like what bedroom
Can
she's
you
sleeping
stop
in.
insulting Florida people?
So yeah, in general, it was just kind of weird that she would bring up things like the room and the hockey team, because like she put such an emphasis on it that you kind of knew it was going to create conflict down the line. But as she's explaining all this is when she sees her father with the cop now holding him like a baby for a photo opportunity. And like, this was where the cop's mind went when he was told that he would do anything for him. Yeah, that's the number one thing he wanted, was to be held like a baby.
I'll say this. I hate myself, but that made me laugh for the first time.
It got me a little bit, yeah.
It got me.
Well, that said, if given the option, if the Big Show asked if you want me to pick him up like a baby and swing him around in public, you wouldn't say no. You'd be like, yes, please do this. It'd be funny.
I mean, if he offered it, sure, but I don't know if I met him and could ask him anything.
I wouldn't ask him.
First thing I would ask for, yeah.
Oh, he did ask him though. That's the thing. Like, that was his request when he said he'd do anything.
And then also in this moment is when JJ shoots off that confetti cannon that she snuck in, and just everybody around was super mesmerized by it. The cop, the Big Show, Lola, the
like
old woman.
3 streamers came out too.
It was like,
it wasn't
has
even
nobody-
It wasn't a
one.
very strong
It's like,
cannon.
Yeah, like
Also,
this
that's
was
an
like
explosion
that
at the
amazing.
airport. No one like reacted.
true.
Like,
Yeah.
Someone
That's a
running to
great
an
point,
airport
yeah.
fucking terminal just going boom.
Yeah, it's
She
just
gets-
but this confetti cannon apparently is the joy of everybody's life. Everyone's just having an amazing time because of it. They arrive home and apparently they lost her bags. So there's already problems as soon as she gets here. And then her way of getting past the fact that her stuff's gone is, at least I'm going to get to see my new room, which again, they were really driving home her being super excited about the room. So I don't understand why a girl her age would be so fixated on this. Why this is the only thing she's looking forward to upon moving to a new state. But that's when we find out that Mandy's protesting with a sit-in, and she's also going to be live streaming it. And then the Big Show asks if she can stay with JJ until this all gets worked out. Apparently, we're going to sort this out. You'll get the room, but can you stay with JJ until then?
You know why this bothered me is I don't know why a 12-year-old in 2021 should know what a sit-in is.
Kids are exposed to a lot more these days, and in
Like, oh,
general,
my
the
hero
whole
She's got
world-
like an
They
RPG.
They
poster on the
explain
wall,
that.
too.
Yeah.
They're trying to
Hate
paint
it.
her
Like,
without doing too much work to say that she's like political and activist.
right.
They also explain that later on in the episode when Big Show is talking to the teacher, and she says, "Well, we like to make civic-minded students."
We'll get into that because
But we'll
that's a
get
whole
into that.
other
just
bunch of stuff too.
indoctrinating your children. Like,
But yeah, it's just and just the fact that when you're playing these roles and you're the dad lets the kids run all over the house, the mom should probably be a little bit more grounded and be the counter to him being the light, easy dad,
it
and
made me
she's
really
worse
mad.
than him.
Like I vocally said, just be a parent, by myself.
And that's the thing. It's if you want him to play that role, there needed to be that balance, and she's worse than him. She does nothing. At no point at any time in this episode does she come off as the mother of these children at all. She does nothing slightly parental.
Yeah, that's why I thought she was a stepmother.
Yeah.
So, seriously, I thought that's why she was.
mean,
a
she
stepmother,
was-
and
She
that's
does
why
give that
he
vibe
couldn't-
now that you mention it. Yeah.
That's why he couldn't really. That's why he was afraid to go tell her. I mean, and that's where I got the vibe,
Right.
because
Yeah, that's understandable.
if you were a stepfather, you wouldn't want to really go in and be a forceful authoritarian to your spouse's children. It's
right.
they are your children, but
Without,
they're-
which makes sense, further, if there's a conflict with her and Lola for sure. But yeah, I'm under the impression the other two are supposed to be her daughters.
Yeah.
They were.
And then
And
JJ
we
apparently
not touch on the fact that they lost a bag. That's part of the whole scenario with her too. Is
right,
her
right.
she
Yeah,
didn't
no,
get
I brought that
bags.
up. Yeah, so yeah,
Oh, did you? Okay.
yeah, because she lost the bag, and the only saving grace was at least she gets her own room. So it was like, what? But yeah, and apparently JJ is someone who sleepwalks, she sleep talks, she sleep eats, and sometimes she sleep pees. Is that what they said? She also
You
pees.
later
Yeah.
find out she
sometimes.
sleep sings.
And,
Because then she has to the middle daughter has to sleep on the top bunk so she doesn't get sleep peed on.
Yeah,
That was actually another clever joke too, though. Later on when she sleeps singing and it's like an Italian song, she goes, "I don't even know Italian." That made me laugh.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that
the
was
show
pretty
has its
funny.
moments at times for sure. So then we see a cutaway, and this felt extremely Disney show to me, because now Lola's texting with her mom, and they're doing the thing where the texts are popping up on the screen so you can read it.
That so
I don't
much.
like that either. I really don't like it. And I understand in today's world, texting's a lot bigger than phone calls. So if you're trying to make a show that's more modern and doesn't feel as dated, it makes more sense to text, and it doesn't translate the same as a phone
Oh, I
conversation.
like that. I
I
like
hated it.
that.
You like that?
I did. I thought that made without having to bring up another screen, that got the point forward that she was texting her mother.
Jay's right though. That's very Disney.
It's a very Disney device.
I
and-
swear I've seen it in Disney sitcoms.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
And I
sure it
can't
is,
say-
but I'm just saying that as a plot device, it works because it drives the point home.
I get
that you're
it. I get
texting.
it. And it works. My only thing is, and I can't even say I can think of a better way to demonstrate texting than doing that. But for this case, just have her talk to her on the phone, sneak off, and just do the one-way conversation. No, mom, I'm not really having a great time.
Also,
But
what I
that's
don't
not
like
what
about it
happens
is
nowadays.
Yep.
The mother sent her to live with the dad and stuff. She's definitely worried her kid, like she's leaving her kid. You would think that the daughter would know that and like act like she's having a good time just in the early days, like not tell her how miserable she is. She's like, oh, this sucks. I'll talk to you later. End. Like
age, you're necessarily even thinking of the big picture, right? You're in your own world. You're only kind of really worried about your own problems at that point. So, I mean, who's to say? I can't get in the mind of her at that age. I can't even remember my own headspace at that time to say what I would have said. And then she finally walks
nothing because you didn't have a cell phone because you didn't have cell phones to text with.
How old is
at 15?
Lola? Right around then is when we got it. Like I want to say,
I had a phone at 15.
Right around 15.
Early Nokia.
Sophomore year, I think I got my first one. So I was right around that age.
Yeah, but they were like the clam phones that you had.
Well, yeah, I mean, technology. We can't argue that technology's changed since
people
we're
nowadays
35 years old.
Yeah, but people nowadays, they don't like to talk on the phone. They text. So that's
right. I'm just saying for a television device, maybe there are ways around it. But
I agree
regardless,
with nowadays.
At this point, this is when Lola walks into what's going to be a temporary new room, at least with JJ, which is called the JJ Dome, where she's greeted with like a foghorn, lights, like a portable karaoke machine.
The foghorn thing makes me so mad because it's doing the radio horn.
Yeah,
like beep, 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 beep. And they do it a few different times for the episode, and it's so obviously an added sound effect in post. It's so not happening.
They could have gave her, instead of giving her that, they could have gave her like a little keyboard. She could have just hit the button on like a keyboard or something instead. And that would have worked as fine.
Instead, it's just the most obviously edited sound, which I wish I wanted. I just want to see like the raw footage of them trying to do that and just be like, now Big Show, when she presses this button, pretend you hear beep, 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 beep. Yeah. Okay. All right.
And I'll say, like, for all these cheesy lines, for some reason, I thought it was really funny when she told her that, like, mi casa es su casa, except me Legos. Me Legos are not su Legos. It was a really dumb line, but that one caught me for, I don't know why.
Kids, doesn't matter generationally. Kids love Legos.
It's true. I never liked Legos. I'm an exception there, but.
And I don't know if you guys looked around. But like there were a few things. There was the obvious like Big Show SmackDown poster when you first got in, but there was a couple other little things too. Yeah, there was also like I caught like a Becky Lynch figure that was like on her shelf, and there's like a couple little wrestling toys, like enough that she loves her dad and what he does, but isn't obsessed with wrestling. So that was fun.
Normally I would have went back and looked for all that kind of stuff on like my second view through, but I could not watch this a second time.
You couldn't get the second one in.
And this is when the Big Show walks in. He's like, how's it going in the JJ Dome? So he's very on board with this concept of the JJ Dome, which is her after hours club. Yeah. And he has a talk with Lola, kind of acknowledging that it's been a shaky start. And, tomorrow's a new day at the new school. And, at least you're going to get to start in the girls hockey team. And then again, I'm like, all right, so we know how things went with the room. And now they're mentioning the hockey team over and over. So, I'm not playing the benefit of the fact that I've seen the whole episode. At this point, am I the only one who realized there was going to be an issue with the girls' hockey team?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. That was foreshadowing.
I thought it was going to be a different issue, but...
Yeah, I didn't necessarily think the issue at hand was going to be what it was. But yeah, that's, you knew something was going to go wrong.
It's very Mighty Ducks, too, right? She's from Minnesota. She's a teenager who plays hockey.
Yeah.
You were a great hockey player, Gordon.
Oh, Hans.
And then after that, so we get to the next day, which is, her first day at school. And we see what must have been after school was over, because the Big Show's there he's probably picking them up, and he's just talking to Mandy's teacher. And it was like, oh, thanks for like excusing the absence because of the sit-in. And the teacher, Gordo, you referenced it earlier, right? And it's how she encourages them to take the day off. And additionally, encourage other students to stay home to watch it on live stream.
Yeah, like you could have watched that on your phone, and you could have projected that onto the screen if that was so important.
I don't care how progressive this school is or how this teacher is. If I had a student, like if I had a child who was told by their teacher to not go to school so they could stay home and watch another student sit in their room all day on their phone, I'd be like, are you out of your mind? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I understand this is a sitcom, but the fact that like the teacher was on board and then they took it to that extreme was too unrealistic to follow. It was just too absurd for her to say that.
Yeah, I agree.
And then
also, why did he let the fact that he let her stay home for it? bothered me too. And then
well, again,
that
powerless.
extrapolated
You know,
it, but like,
neither parent plays the role of the parent, so they're gonna run amok.
you
and
gotta
do whatever
say,
they
you know,
want.
that's fine. Your sit-in's fine. You're going to school though.
Yeah. Well, if you want a further example, it's like the very next line shows how extreme this gets, right? And this is, again, if you thought the idea of a teacher telling her students to not go to school to support someone else's sit-in over losing her bedroom.
Well, yeah, trivial stuff.
This is when we find out that at some point JJ stole a boat and was taking off to go to the Keys for and then the only reason that she stopped was halfway through. She was jonesing for a PB&J and turned herself in. So like I start looking this up because now I'm just curious. And
how far is it to the Keys?
It's about 300 miles on a boat, and it would take about 10 hours straight, depending on the size of the boat. So I'm to believe that this little girl, who's probably maybe 8 years old, stole a boat and made it about 5 hours down the road before she was finally just hungry and turned herself in to the authorities.
To be fair, if you are riding a boat, it's not like it's driving a car where it's, curves and stoplights and stuff. There's very, very rudimentary rules of the sea that you have to follow, but you could pretty much just point it and go. I mean,
you're justifying
straight line.
It's a straight line.
Child.
Like, yeah,
it's
a straight line.
But you're justifying how you do it, not that this person who's like 7 should do it.
But what I'm saying is
like
that
hijacking
it's
a boat
easy.
and traveling for hours. If you're the parent, if you're the Big Show or the mother, and your young child has gone missing from stealing a boat, and she went 5 hours down on her own.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like I get that. Like this is all to be
the
like
Big Show
funny,
was
but
on the road, so it was just the mother, and she was overwhelmed with the other daughter.
That's
a good
very
call.
possible.
I mean, I don't know how we justify something this outlandish, but
I assume she's just a big
hours?
Jimmy Buffett fan. Heading down to them Keys, Margaritaville, baby.
But I don't know. It just, and then so then we get
There's also too where you see her with the selfie stick. We were trying to figure out what other wrestling reference there was. This is clearly Tyler Breeze, right?
Tyler Breeze recently released as of the time of this recording. Yeah, so not to make this episode less evergreen, but yes,
he's gone with the wind.
Topical.
And this is when JJ and Lola enter the scene, right? Because it is the end of the school day, and Big Show asked her how her first day went, and just asking a really weird question actually about he asked her if the school has those urinals that go all the way down to the floor. And then, I forgot you're a girl. But I was thinking, like, those are so not a thing anymore. And it's so rare you see those anywhere anymore. I can't tell you. It's been decades since I've seen.
Not only have I seen one
Oh.
recently, it was a very nice
school
bathroom.
thing.
Yeah,
So
I used one
recently-
recently too.
And it
The
is a school. It's a
Cantab.
school / handicap thing.
it's
It
because
doesn't need to be a certain
school
height.
Kids are different sizes, so they don't want like.
Also,
Yeah.
much easier to poop in.
The bar the Cantab has them, and they fill them with water cookies.
No, they what the hell's a water
What the
cookie?
fuck is a water cookie?
They put
Ice?
ice in the urinal instead of urinal cakes.
I know
Okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about going to the Cantab is peeing on the ice.
Why do they do that?
I don't
I
know.
think
Why does Joe call them water cookies? I mean,
These are good.
why does mine have chocolate chips in it?
Anyways, no, I guess I just didn't. I don't remember seeing one I think the last time I saw one, I was in like Cancun, like 10 years ago or something like that. But our kindergarten did have one when we were kids. The
I
kindergarten
remember
was
the
last
CCD
school.
had them.
That was like the only school I remember that had one.
I don't remember that, but I'll believe you.
So just
But yeah,
so
I
you
thought that
guys
was, like-
know, they use ice in urinals because it kills the smell of urine because it like pushes the molecules together, according to the internet.
Oh,
it's
interesting.
Also, it's a
That's
way
good to know.
to dispose of ice.
Yeah, I
You
guess
like
two
go to a
birds,
bar,
one
you have old
stone.
ice, or somebody like breaks a glass in the ice bucket or whatever.
So it's two birds with one stone. So
Yeah.
get rid of if you're at the bar, you get rid of the excess ice, and you don't have to buy urine cakes.
Where was your Wikipedia there, Gordo?
But at this point,
It's not poop. I'm an expert on poop.
Gordo's back end, front end.
Yeah. Ferg, you're the wicked pisser.
The wicked pisser.
and at this
You're the
point, this
wicked
is when
pisser.
Lola explains that it wasn't a good day, and that in fact there is no girls hockey team, and that JJ sings in his sleep, as was mentioned earlier. And the thing is, like, obviously they made a big deal about the girls hockey team. It got mentioned multiple times throughout the episode about how excited she was to play for this team, and how is it that neither the parents or her even looked up to see if this team existed?
Because
How
they're
is it-
shitty
shit
parents.
parents.
first
Yeah,
of
the
all.
shitty parents.
Also, second
Yeah,
of
this is
all,
exercising bad
after
parenting.
it's established that there is no women's hockey team, he goes and argues with the coach, and it's just like, what? Okay, just create a girls hockey team. Like, what did you want him to do? What was
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
desire?
Because you would need to
outcome?
have
think
enough girls to play on the team.
Right.
Which
Right,
I mean,
and that
is
was the
valid-
argument by the coach too. And
Tiny coach.
Well, yeah, so it's a little further down the road, but we can just talk about that now. So yeah, he does want to resolve this issue because he's trying to make everything great for Lola. It's obviously been a less than desirable transition for her. So he wants to make it up to her, and he does try to make this one thing at least, happen for her, which is her desire to play hockey, because it's important to her. So he talks to this coach, he walks in the office. What was he doing? Was he doing curls at the time or something?
Yeah, he was doing
the old
dumbbell.
Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, he's a little guy, and he's bulking up, and he's very animated. But yeah, ultimately the argument was he goes, we've talked about this. There's not enough girls in Tampa who want to play hockey for a team, which I was like, oh, that's a super
sense.
reasonable reason to not have a girls hockey team. It wasn't like he was like, no, I don't want girls on the ice. It wasn't like
That's
that was
what
the
it should
argument.
have been. It should have been, I can't have girls playing with boys. And
Right.
Much
But
better writing.
Yeah, but instead it was a completely
Yeah.
logical reason
Also-
why there wasn't a team.
So the
To
Big
put it
Show
into-
beats him up over this.
To put it
Double
put it into
stuff.
perspective as far as hockey in Florida goes, the Tampa Bay Lightning just won the Stanley Cup for the second year in a row, and fucking nobody cares.
Yeah, like,
True.
Just no
Yeah.
one gives a shit. Did anybody recognize this coach for anything? Because he's super recognized.
He
when
was
I looked him up,
familiar.
and it was the weirdest credit.
I didn't-
It's
I didn't
weird too,
recognize
him.
because have you ever done that, right, where you see somebody in a show and either they are or the character is so obscure that you don't feel like looking it up on IMDb, like the hockey coach or the coach from the Big Show that was on screen for 14 seconds is not going to be worth the trouble to look up.
I looked him up.
Wow.
And I knew where I knew him from. It is a movie called Christmas in Vermont with Chevy Chase from
Okay.
like 2 years ago. That
I'm
was like a
sold
Lifetime
already.
movie. We watched it last year, and it was terrible.
Did he play an elf?
I don't think so, but I remember him being funny in it because I recognized him. So he must have been like enough of a presence that I was like, oh, I like part of my brain remembered him from something. But I'll watch anything with Chevy Chase in it, especially Christmas related.
And the Big Show's like response to all this was just being really rude to the coach. But then like the coach starts calling him double stuff,
Which I did think was funny.
which
I
he
did
didn't
too.
take kindly to. And then he just says like, well,
The
you're
coach
just a-
kind of signed his own death warrant by, making fun of the giant fighter man.
and he
Yeah.
said that he was he called him just a PE teacher that shops at Baby Gap. And that was his thing after that.
It made me laugh too.
So yeah, so the coach kicks him out, and then he before he leaves, asked him if he'll hang a photo for him. I was like, huh? Like, get out of my office. Wait, before you leave, can you help me with it? Was just like, I don't know. It was just really weird.
The Faulty Tower callback.
Mm.
Mm.
And
Okay.
I do want to get in just to backtrack just a tad right before that scene when he was talking to his wife about the whole situation of whether or not he would or wouldn't talk to the coach. She was shaving his head because apparently this is like a common situation while he has her shave his head is when he clears his mind. But they were talking about how like he explained why he was going to do this, why he was going to go and talk to the coach. And the reasoning behind it was like he said, I've always been, he's like a FaceTime dad. Now I have to be an in-person dad. And like, which was reasonable. And then the wife had said something about like better than being a butt dial dad. Like when you left that 4-minute message ordering dollar menu items at Wendy's. And I was like, a couple things here. First thing, that had nothing to do with your parenting. He butt dialed you. So you just snuck in this weird joke. It made no sense, had no context to what he was talking about.
He spent a lot of dollars that day.
Right.
Well, he could have butt dialed one of the kids and they played the message back to the mom, though.
Right.
It
If
would've
they,
been- it would have
but
been
then
funnier
establish
if they were,
that,
like,
do the little
banging.
flashback, like the way the show's formatted, she should have said that, and then there should have been a flashback scene of like the two daughters giggling while he's just sitting in the drive-thru, and you hear her just go, junior bacon cheeseburger, 4-piece spicy nugget.
It's already
Just
funnier
do
than
all
what we
that.
got.
Like that would have been the easy way around that then, because otherwise it sounds like that has something to do with his parenting, and she just wanted to bring it up because she thought it was funny. Additionally,
it's almost like the writing for this show leaves holes in everything.
Right. Additionally, Wendy's no longer has a dollar menu, nor does any of these fast food establishments, which is a whole other predicament that bothers me.
Value.
Just value menus, because they know if it's a dollar menu, they have to charge $1 for the item.
Doesn't McDonald's still have a dollar menu? I thought they still call
they
it
have
a
a value
menu.
menu with stuff that is $1, but
some things are $1.
Not everything.
Because
really
once
need to
upon
get
a
that
time,
extra 29 cents out of me.
when we were younger, when we were like, 16, 17 and first starting to drive, we used to all go up to that Wendy's, in Revere, and we would raid the dollar menu and get so many items for $1 each. But because the world has changed and it's stupid now, there's only value menu items. And now a junior bacon cheeseburger that used to cost $1 when we were younger is now like $2 and change, which is absurd. And the value is no longer there. End rant.
If it makes you
really
feel any better, I'm
bothers me.
allergic to all of it, so it's even worse for me.
That does make me feel better.
The evil face.
I can't believe this $2.50 cheeseburger would kill Joe.
It's the end of me, boys.
Worth it.
But yeah, so,
Okay, so
go ahead.
oh, so this is when they go back to the house, right?
At this point is when they get back home, and she's mad that he got
met the
involved.
coach.
Okay,
Yeah.
because this is one of my biggest things, and maybe this is nitpicking or weird, but we've talked a lot about how this house makes no sense to me and to any of us, and how he would have a bigger house and all of this. They're hanging out on this roof deck. It's built as a deck. It has railings. It's on the roof, though. It's not like accessible by a door. You still have to climb out a window to get onto it. So it's strictly a deck that should be technically there for aesthetics only, which means I don't know how
fire
to trust
escape.
how well the railing is, and the kids just get allowed to walk out of the window to go hang out on the roof.
Bad
What is
parents.
happening here?
Didn't one of them
And that's a
zip line
choice they
onto
made,
the
though,
roof?
because that's
That's
not
way
That was
Yeah,
another
that
like comedic JJ like thing. They have her zip
JJ's
line
so
into that.
wacky.
And that was
How did JJ break her neck?
yeah, and to set that up, that's Lola.
Okay, that's
Lola
Kevin
was just on the
McCall.
roof texting again.
fall.
Because I think with everything going on, Lola obviously is kind of trapped. She doesn't have a room of her own. She has no hockey team. She's just trying to vent. She can't get a loan because she doesn't have a room. So she's hiding up on the roof so she can text her mother again. So they cut to that thing again. Then Mandy comes out and talks about how she's overwhelmed with the sit-in because what happened earlier in the episode that we didn't get into is now children are getting involved and showing up at the house and coming and joining in on the sit-in because JJ has used her father's Twitter account to have people start showing up, which right off the bat, the Big Show has 2.5 million followers on Twitter. So if she offered her address to the world like that on Twitter, they would have to move immediately. That would be how this episode concludes, is the public security risk of the entire world knowing my home address. We need to now move. But this has all become a lot because of all the kids and the attention. And now they need to devise a plan to kind of end all of this. The only other thing I wanted to mention from right before is when they first get home and they talk about what just happened to the school, there is a funny cutaway, but of the coach hanging on the wall because they had hung up, instead of hanging up the picture as requested, the Big Show decided to hang the coach on the wall, and you just see him flaring around and all the students
super
are
predictable too.
Yeah. And then as
Funny,
you
though.
Telegraphed, you see it
both,
coming.
both
hang
daughters
that
heard
picture double stuff.
other than Lola, the other two daughters had heard versions of the story that were exaggerated from the truth because the legend is already starting to precede itself. So,
Dad assaulted a teacher.
but yeah, I thought the whole thing, I mean, and I want to go back a little bit into what I was talking about with JJ, and we said how she ziplined into that scene when she started to talk, and it was just very extreme. They were really forcing these wild things upon her, and they wanted to make her this bigger character than she needed to be. And I think they focused so much on her that they kind of lost track of some other things. They were just constantly looking for funny moments to put in the show instead of like crafting a script that actually was cohesive and made sense.
You know what bothered me too is what's the oldest one's name? Is it Lola?
Lola's the oldest child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lola's like, don't help me. I don't want help. Blah blah blah. Like, and then like the mother's like, don't help her. It's like, shouldn't you want him to help his daughter out? It's like,
Right. Well, I think because what we realize is that he's interfering when he doesn't need to. It wasn't help when she really needed it because she said, I'll handle it. He didn't give her the opportunity to try.
children can't handle anything. That's the thing. Like,
Well, she's not she's not 6 or 7 years old. She's old enough that she might be able to at least attempt to talk to him and see what they can get on. But I don't know. I understand why he gets involved, but we didn't also see enough to know if there was a real attempt on her part yet, or if she had the opportunity to defend herself.
I was gonna say too. I mean, at 15, 16, like you kind of want your children to be a little independent at that point, and that's innocent enough to go and approach a coach. That's like really innocent enough for you to kind of start to put your wings out there and do that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, but
I
they do
can see
mention
the, I
that,
can
like,
see
you know,
the, but I mean, but in the real world, you would have your
In the real
athlete.
world.
Heyo. But in the real world, you would
In
have
the big
your
real world of night long.
you would have your athletic.
Are we going back to this part of the show? Because I would love to just go back into where we just start doing these things again. It was way more fun.
My
We were
point
having
is
an
that
analytical conversation about whether or not the Big Show is a good parent in this situation to beat up the coach. Okay, we've lost the plot a little bit here, people.
no, I was just going to say that you would want the Big Show to go because he's a well-known athlete. So you would probably want him.
He's not a
to
hockey
approach.
player.
Doesn't
No,
matter. He's still at the top of his. He's still on as far as professional wrestling goes. He was on the major leagues for however long he was, 25, 30 years.
Right.
He
I
is
think
still
it's
a
more a matter that
top-tier-
she wants to do things and accomplish them on her own. I think she knows her father could get her whatever she wants. She just doesn't want that
She
to
wants
be
to
her
be
life.
independent.
Yeah,
She wants
so
to be
I
independent.
understand that. But it looks
I
like
just think
the
sending
father.
a different type of athlete over there doesn't make sense. Like sending Michael Vick to your lacrosse team isn't going to be like, well, Michael Vick came.
No, if you have any notoriety or money, I mean, that could be impressive in a school situation. I mean, you
Yeah.
flex
Yeah.
your celebrity a little bit. It's not even that he's an athlete. He could have been anything. He could have been an actor or whatever. He could have been famous for any number of reasons, but being able to just flex
Yes,
that
you're right. The
popularity.
Big Show could have been an actor.
Could have been an actor. But him hanging the PE coach on the wall did somehow earn her a hockey tryout, which is what we see next. And she was right. People aren't really engaging with her because that was the argument that she had with her father before, that she didn't want to really just try out for the boys team because she knew what was going to happen. And this is what we're seeing now, in that people aren't engaging with her. They're afraid to check her. They're not passing her the puck. And, it's like, why am I even here? And we see Big Show in the stand talking to JJ because apparently JJ never has to go to school as long as she has a reason to sneak out and do whatever she wants. And the Big Show's like, I need to get involved because, the theme of the show is don't get involved. He gets involved anyways. And then you see him charging onto the ice, scaring the coach again. And then talks to her and he's like, check me into the wall. She's like, what are you talking about? And she just check me so they can see what you're capable of, which I guess is somewhat sound logic. And she doesn't want to do that. And then kind of does the McFly thing, right? Just like calls her a chicken or something like that. And that was enough to set her off. And then she storms at him, checks him into the boards. And then, it cuts to the whole hockey team and the coach cheering for her because of, the impressive check she just laid out on her 7-foot father.
He doesn't.
The
take
check
a
is
very
only
good
impressive
bump,
that she
by the way.
took down a guy that big. The type of check, she goes into him, then she bear hugs him, and then she dead weights
Yeah.
him to pull him down, which I'm pretty sure would be a penalty in actual hockey, right?
Yes, and you can just add it to the list of things wrong with this show.
Well, yeah,
Like,
I think
yeah.
it was more a demonstration of toughness, right? Her ability to even get him on the ground was more what was impressive to everybody.
Knocked man with frail knees over on ice. Like,
Old
real
man hitting the
feat of
ground with
strength,
football.
yeah.
Let's see you do it.
oh, I could do it.
And while he's on the ground, they also have a little bit of time to bond for everything going on. And There was another weird, I can't remember what it was. I didn't write it down, but they gave JJ some other weird last line to close the show on. And that kind of, again, was the thing. Every time she was in a scene, she kind of had to take over the scene.
She showed up and goes, "Can you do it again for my Instagram?" Or
Oh,
something
right,
like that.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
she had the
yeah,
video.
for the
She wanted to
Twitter,
do it.
yeah.
She wanted to get one in
Slow-mo.
slow motion.
Yeah, that's what it was. Slow-mo.
Yep. And then, so they're heading back home. You see the mother on the phone, and she's trying to sell somebody on that haunted house. And that's not going so well.
I thought that was funny. That was funny. It
and
doesn't
then it
have
was-
ghosts.
Yeah, it has a ghost.
Why don't you sell it to the Undertaker?
A ghost.
And then as she's getting off the phone from that, that's when the rest of the family shows back up. But the bags are finally here. Nope, wrong bags. So, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse for Lola for the most part. Everything's just going wrong. And then-
I actually think I had a laugh here though. Like, did he find out the bags went to Paris?
yes.
Yeah.
He's like, that's a good place for bags. I don't know why that made me laugh. But it did.
that was kind of funny.
And you start to see the kids are from upstairs are kind of like leaking into the stairs almost because there's so many of them. And they're all from Orlando, they said. And I was like, how did all these kids get, Tampa to Orlando is like a little over an hour. Like, how do they get there? Like, did their parents all drive them to Tampa
They look
to
too young
just
to be
sit
driving
there?
themselves.
Yeah, they're too young to drive. So how do they all get to Tampa to go to the sit-in? But that left that's an expensive Uber. But that left it left the
Well, they've
opportunity
got
for a
Orlando
joke.
money.
Yeah. Well, it left the joke for the wife to say that, I hate all Orlando kids. They have that Disney stink on them,
How
which was like
rude.
funny because, as I said earlier, this show has that Disney stink on it. It feels like
does.
like a Disney show. But
Well, when WWE eventually sells to Disney in like 6 months or whatever,
Yeah.
maybe they'll.
No, they're more likely to
finally do a
sell
second
to
season.
Universal. They have like all over Universal Studios is WWF stuff.
Well, I mean, the Comcast or NBC deal, right, with
NBC, yeah.
Peacock.
Yeah, I was gonna say
They're already in partner with them.
But yeah, this again,
This is
there
where
was
Big
more,
Show has his big angry quote for the episode too, right?
this was when he
Big
heads
Show yelling at
upstairs.
young females.
Yeah, he heads
He yells at a bunch
upstairs.
of little girls.
Yeah, because it's all girls, I think, right? There were no boys present
Yeah.
at the sit-in.
I thought there were some.
No,
There,
it's all,
but I don't
it's
know.
all young girls.
I don't remember
It's
seeing
not,
it.
a big,
noticed
it's not a big
him
important part of the
yelling
show.
at young girls like, right away.
But yeah, this is when we get to this moment where he goes up and he's like, unless you're, my
Aw.
child or I claim you as a dependent on my taxes, then, you're getting out of here. And then he just gives out like an ogre's, and they all run off and scatter.
Yeah, what? Oh, it's the Big Show.
Get out of my house now.
I'm bigger and bolder than you.
But
Somebody
yeah,
says
that
they're
was,
bigger, balder than this room.
but that was it. I mean, that was enough to scare I guess, if you're like a 14-year-old girl and a 7-foot gigantic man starts screaming to get out of the house, it's a good time to get out of the house.
If they wanted to have JJ have another moment, they should have had him yell at the kids. They all just look at him, no effect, and then have her come in, get out, and then have them all run.
Missed opportunity number 75
Exactly.
of the show. Yeah. Because that was when
They could have just had his old manager Kevin Sullivan come in as the Prince of Darkness and just yell at them all in Boston accents. Like, want to get rid of you in Hulkamania.
I don't think the Taskmaster is allowed around children anymore.
but, that was the conclusion of that. Now we're gonna cut to nighttime.
I can't believe there's more of this.
Yeah.
Say, is this still going?
This
Oh
is
my
the end.
god!
This
This
is
is like
it.
the
Big
song
Show-
that does not end.
Big
Well,
Show
this is
walks
Big Show's
into
puns.
Big Show walks into what's now Lola's room, but still, decorated the same because it was never really thought of. And they're just reflecting on this old picture of the two of them from when she was like a little girl. And he's
Like the
getting
worst
sentimental.
Photoshop picture I've ever seen.
Yeah.
too.
It looks like the picture in Seinfeld where George tries to get himself photoshopped in and the guy doesn't know how to do it, so he just draws a cartoon. Like that's the level of picture
Yeah.
we're at with the Big Show of this little girl.
And he's getting sentimental looking at it, and they're reflecting on the day because they made a Big Show size snowman, they said, and it took months for it to melt and all this. And apparently, this was up. Did he live in Minnesota with them? Was that established?
No,
when-
maybe
when he was
no.
with them?
No,
would
I think
take
he
good
was probably
writing.
traveling.
Yeah.
And I assume that if you're traveling through the state that your daughter lives in,
Right.
that you would come in and
This is like
Is
a
it?
one night stand scenario.
You think
you know?
the mom's a ring rat? Like
They didn't establish.
I was with Virgil the night before.
But you know, and then I think at that point he invites her to come down to dinner or something with the family, and you know she needs a minute. She wants more time to just stare at this photo because all her stuff isn't there, right? So is her stuff back yet? I think it isn't, right? So she just had that one photo. And now you go down to dinner downstairs, which is in the living room, which I thought was, again, just kind of weird. They're all just eating in the living room. And there's no table or anything like
That's
that.
I feel like that's
modern
less
thing,
weird.
though. Like we're all
Yeah.
gonna sit in
Yeah,
front of
that's
the TV.
normal.
Yeah,
I feel like that's
You let-
more
you-
normal. Like when's the last
you
time
left
you
out all the big
ate at your
shows
dining room
puns.
table?
Well, when was
Yeah,
the
let's
last time
have
I ate with
company
like my
over.
family in general, though? I mean, it's just like one of those, I don't know, if the whole family's having taco night or whatever it was, like then the table's available.
Mediterranean.
The
night.
Oh, it was
hero.
Mediterranean
that's
night,
right.
right.
What was it? The hero with a euro or
Yeah,
something
Hero,
like
hero,
that?
it's all Greek to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do appreciate a good pun.
Oh,
Yeah, I
what was
was
the
gonna say-
pita? What was the pita joke he made?
I
Pun.
don't know, but it was a big miss.
No, I thought they were all
No,
funny.
that one was funny.
Yeah,
I laughed
those
at them
got
all.
me.
Oh yeah.
They also did, what was the thing they did before they ate where they were just talking about, what was it? Like,
They had to say like what one good thing that happened to them today,
Yeah.
or
It
something
was
like that.
basically the Thanksgiving. Let's say what we're thankful for, which
Yeah.
would get really old really fast. That was the family dinner thing.
right,
That's just because they have values.
right.
They
And,
have-
yeah.
Well, they got big values.
And during the process
We
of that
got
is when
heroes.
that's when we see Lola coming down the stairs and seeing the family all getting along, and
And she
One
goes,
last-
well,
yeah, well, it's time for dinner. And this is when we see she's texting her mom for the third time in the episode, and now it looks like she's gonna just stay. She decides she wants to stay, and that's going to create what's the rest of the season is she's not gonna move to Belgium with mom. She's gonna hang out with dad and the rest of the family and
So
learn
was
how
it
to live.
established that was always an option that she could have went with her? Because I
Yeah.
took that as I saw on the message, like, if you're that miserable, you can come with me to live with me in Belgium. And it's like, why would you leave your daughter if that was always an option? And so
They mentioned in
sure-
the plane part, I think.
I'm sure it was somewhat on the daughter. Like, do you want to move with me to Belgium or do you want to move
Yeah.
to Florida with your father? And she may not have
I
wanted
mean-
to change countries or
I mean,
Yeah.
imagine, be moving to, she still has to go to school. It's not like
Yep.
she's 18, 19. So, I mean,
There's
imagine
schools in
going to school with a
Belgium.
foreign.
chocolate.
Yeah, but they
schools.
speak Belgium.
No,
I believe it's
don't.
Flemish, Gordo. I
That's
believe
not-
they speak Flemish.
Well, they speak
Not
Dutch.
Belgium.
They speak Dutch, German.
They don't. They speak Belgian.
They speak like
Dutch.
4 or 5 languages there, but I
Yeah.
think
The
the
German,
national
I think,
language
is
Flemish.
the no.
They teach you to
Flemish is
make
in
their
Finland.
waffles.
Flemish is
I'm
not.
I'm not going to chime into
Finland.
a
Finnish is
conversation that I
Finland.
can't give a logical answer for because I can't. say it one
Flemish?
way or another.
Like the rabbits.
Flemish.
Like the
Finnish
big-
is Finland.
It's
a
Dutch
big-
because
big
that's that whole Austin Powers thing where like the mother's a Belgian hooker and
So
that's
the
why
official
dad hates the
languages
Dutch.
in Belgium are Dutch, German, and French.
That's what I just said. I
They
think.
have three official languages.
not
Pick a
Belgium.
language, Belgium.
Or is Flemish also a?
I've
No,
never even
Belgian
heard of
language, am I going crazy?
Flemish.
Sounds like
That's a
just make that up.
rabbit.
Like
That's like one of those, those really large rabbits. They're
No, that's
called
a
Flemish
Pokemon.
rabbits because they come from Flemland.
Yeah, they come from Flemland.
stop making
Finland.
shit up, both of you.
No, Flemish rabbits. Go look it up. They're from
I'm
like
looking it up
England
now.
or like Wales or some shit. Yeah, go look it up. Go look
Oh,
up
Flemish and Dutch are the same language.
Oh, Flemish is
Oh.
a regional term for Dutch. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it, Netherlands.
Either
You
yeah,
freaky
all right,
deaky Dutch bastard.
All right, so you're right. So yeah,
no one
that
calls
was
just like you call them fucking, water cookies. Like no one calls it Flemish.
Who is Boner?
Fucking you use
Who's
I'm
Boner?
sure the first time you saw water cookies, you went, wow, look at these bonkers water cookies, guys. Like you fucking Bobo fucking urinal cakes here.
To be fair, they probably have referred to them as Bobo urinal cakes at one point.
Who's Bone?
Okay.
all right. So that is the conclusion of the episode.
Hey, before
Thank
before
you,
we go any
Satan.
further, I just wanted to ask because we're all, somewhat of wrestling buffs. If you could just pick one other wrestler that would be in this show instead of the Big Show, who would you pick?
Michael P.S. Hayes.
That I think would fit better, or just
someone that you just out of preference
that I would find entertaining.
Like the same show, it just
Stone
replaced
Cold. I'm doing a sit-in. Oh hell no, Stunner.
I think I'd have to go Gold Dust.
I was gonna,
but in like full costume the whole
question:
time.
Can they? Do they? Yeah, are they in character? Because if they get to be in gimmick,
yeah, okay.
If
so
they're in
my
gimmick,
head,
it's a different
in my head they
story.
were in character, but
have to
I
go
guess
to
they don't
school.
have to be. Yeah.
Kane then. Kane easily.
I could. Oh, well, I mean, like if we're talking about
big
just
jokes
wrestlers, I
work.
see who could do it. I mean, yeah. I think Austin could have. I think Chris Jericho could probably do it.
As a Chris
he's
Jericho
waiting for that
fan,
phone call.
I think he might do a worse job.
Well,
And
again,
anybody but Edge, who is the worst actor I've ever seen, that's also a wrestler.
So
what about Bret Hart?
we've concluded talking
Bret's
about
probably better.
everything that happened in the episode, and we can take a minute to just talk about the show in general. Now that we've talked about everything that happened within the show, but I think, like we said before, for me personally, I think it's a writing issue and a direction issue, and like the overall vibe of the show that was created more than it was the Big Show's fault.
No, it's not his fault. It's everything else. Everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, I want to reiterate. I think the Big Show has charisma. I don't even think he's that bad of an actor. I think he just put in a bad situation with bad writing, and he's just trying to make the best of it.
If I could,
I would love to see them give him some other shots to do stuff, because I do think he's good
Yeah.
on screen and he's fun to watch, and I like him.
I think the writing for this show needs to be smarter and goofier. If that makes sense to you.
It can't get goofier.
No. This is goofy in the wrong way, though. You're laughing at and not with because of how goofy it is. But like smart goofy could be good. I feel like he could be like slapsticky almost,
He should
or
have just been his wrestling persona.
yeah,
the whole
I don't
time.
know. There's just I
This
think they
show
could
is
have done a
meant
better
for
job.
preteens. I mean, that's the thing. This show is
Yeah.
written for preteens. It's a show that, like, I kept saying it was like a Disney show. If they put it on Disney, probably would have had better legs than if you put it on Netflix. And you just showed it to a bunch of kids who didn't even know that he was a wrestler, but it was part of the story. They would have just accepted it and went on. But like, the show was focused to be a little bit more about the kids than it was about him. It wasn't.
Yeah,
for
the wife's
people
barely
our
in
age.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be a weird thing, right? When you're watching a show that's for not your demographic and for how different things are from when you were that demographic, right? It's like when we watched, not for the show, but individually, the new Saved by the Bell reboot, right?
Right.
You're like, okay, I'm watching this because it's familiar and I know a lot of the people from when I was a kid, but it makes no sense. They're all arguing about
Soft
WhatsApp
reboot,
chats
nostalgia
and stuff,
pop.
and you're just like, I guess this isn't for me.
Right. And I think the show.
So I think this show just isn't for us, whether or not we're wrestling fans. It's
right.
just
And
not
that's
our-
just a problem with the show, is that they wrote a show that was meant for the wrong audience that they were advertising to.
Because it also falls under the. I mean, we have all these shows that we loved back in the day, right? And then there are a group of them that you go back to watch, and you're like, "Whoa, this is not good." And this is going to be one of
Perfect
those shows
Strangers.
for any of the kids who enjoyed it. You know what I mean? They're going to be like, "Oh, you remember the Big Show show? It's going to be, in a ditch somewhere in a fucking DVD box
You
set."
remember the
and
Big
the kids
Show
are
show?
like, "Oh, yeah."
No.
Yeah, I do not remember that show. It's just it might catch a younger kid with a shorter attention span, I guess.
You know
but
what? I want to do an experiment. I'm going to show this show to my son. I want
that would be a good experiment.
Yeah,
That
I
would
would
be a
love
great
to hear what
experiment.
he thinks.
I have him
Yeah.
tomorrow. I'm going to put it off for him.
Watch this. Write everything down.
No, he loves like wrestlers like the Big Show, like older ones like that, but like still,
And don't-
would make me cringe. I won't say a word to him.
I was gonna
just
say, don't
I just
engage
think it
with
was-
him. Just monitor his reaction.
Yeah. And it was just a show that it was made for a young audience and advertised for an older audience, because the appealing part to watch the show was that the Big Show's on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a 12-year-old girl who might like the show and relate to the daughters and find them funny, they don't know who the Big Show is or care enough to watch the show just because he's the star of it. So I mean, that's where they went wrong. I think if you like, other family sitcoms we've talked about, like we just did Everybody Loves Raymond like a few weeks ago. When you look at a show like that, I'm not saying put the Big Show in Ray's role, but a show that's more geared that way, that's
Could be
more about
Robbie.
adults, but a show that's where the adults are the focus and not the kids, then maybe he could have shined better if the writing was a little bit more mature and targeted that way. Like, I think there's a world where he could have succeeded on a show. I don't think it rests on his back why this show wasn't good.
Yeah,
Anything else?
He's
It's
not a
bad
terrible
decisions all
actor,
around.
but
Everyone did
he's not good
poorly
either.
here.
But he's not terrible.
You forget too, he spent his career acting, right? Like, regardless of what you think about wrestling, there is a huge degree of it that is involved.
And it's all live too.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
that's a big thing with a lot of wrestlers. And they've talked about it. Like, all these guys have, throughout our lives, we've talked about how many years you've seen the Big Show, but all wrestlers in general, you're watching him go one take only live for 25 years.
And I think that just solidifies how poorly the writing affected the outcome, Yeah. As it does, I guess, right?
So is there a world where, the Big Show could be redeemed on a different show where something works out? Maybe not as the lead, give him like a secondary role.
I just think he would any thrive. Other sitcoms like guest spots.
No, I think he showed up on an SNL once when like The Rock hosted or something like that. He
was holding Chris Kattan.
Yeah.
Isn't he in? He's in Jingle All the Way.
He was the Santa, the big Santa.
Oh, you know what?
He's in MacGruber, I want to say.
He's in the fucking Waterboy.
He's in Waterboy.
Oh, yeah, Captain Insano.
Captain Insano.
Yeah.
Good call, Gordo.
Have any of you guys watched the movie Knucklehead?
I wish I did.
Again?
It's the same effect.
Knucklehead was the movie where he was a gigantic adult who still lived at the orphanage that he like grew up in.
No,
and then the orphanage was going to shut down.
You don't.
So
it has really
was like
WWE Studios movie too, right?
Yeah, one of the early ones, and he was traveling the world trying to make money to save the orphanage.
It sounds like
anybody has seen the Shadow Room with Triple H.
What?
Big Show is a much better actor than Triple H.
That's probably not.
I've seen Blade Trinity. I don't agree. Where's my dog?
Listen, we've seen a lot of, and not to go into a long tangent because this is a pretty long episode, but
no, we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah,
this is
we've seen a lot of success with wrestlers acting, and I would like to see the Big Show get more opportunity to do something else because he does have a tremendous amount of charisma, and I think there are the right
He'd be
roles
a good
for him.
neighbor on a sitcom. The goofy big neighbor.
Yeah, like the second.
I don't want to see him the star.
I think he would excel in something that's not PG.
Yeah, well, just something that's not aimed so low, like for age rather, not low for the age demographic. If they did something that was a little more geared for adults.
To Nick's point, look at the parallel of actual wrestling right now, right? Wrestling is PG currently, and it's experiencing the lowest viewership in 25 years.
It's really not, because it's really not it's geared towards children, but it's not a children's show. WWE,
no, and if you
wrestling
go
in
too
general,
much one way, you lose part of the audience. You go too much the other way, you lose the other half. It's a lose-lose.
Yeah,
situation.
there's no balance. There's no balance, and I feel like their real target audience, like this show should be, is like the 16 to 18.
Probably younger is what the show is supposed to be. Probably
but this 16. Is geared a little bit younger. This is more aiming at like 12 to 14. But you can
Lola
do
was
it
probably
16,
what, like
18,
supposed to be like 15 years old or so, and she's supposed to be the cool older sister. So usually you're younger looking up to her, like watching the show.
Yeah. So. And I feel like if it was just geared just like a hair up, you could get away with more mature jokes.
Right.
Than they did in this show.
But you know what? I think we've said our piece with the show. I don't think there's going to be a lot of surprises in the next segment, but for all intent and purpose, like, let's just go around. Let's do our green light and cancel. I'm going to go in the order that I see you. Joe, you're starting off this time. The Big Show, green light or cancel.
This is a cancel. I mean, look, we said it a billion times because I feel like we actually all like the Big Show so much that we're trying to compensate. We're like, it's not your fault, man. Right. Really like him. Charismatic, interesting, funny dude. This is just complete garbage, though. And this is just, we're 0 for 2 on Netflix originals. It seems like they can't do sitcoms very well. Time will tell, I guess. But this was painful to watch the second time. It was fun to rip it apart with a bunch of my friends, but it was hard to watch a second time.
Ferg.
well, this show is canceled. Yeah, what's there to say that hasn't already been said? Yeah, it's a no for me. Everything Joe said, I agree with, and yeah, that's it.
Nick.
Yeah, this show wasn't meant for us. I'm canceling. It's I'm not even sure. I guess we'll find out with Ferg, but I'm not even sure it will hit with the people it was meant for. But just wasn't good. Bad writing, not great acting, and it's too bad. No go.
Gordo.
Don't you
Oh,
do
no.
it.
Oh no.
Green light from me. Green light.
Oh, come
Green
on.
light.
Wow.
Are you being a
100%.
contrarian?
He is being a
No,
contrarian.
I'm not
right
being
now,
a
yeah.
contrarian. I am not being a
1,000% you are.
contrarian. No,
List
I
your
am
bullets
not.
right now. I need to hear them.
The fucking scene at the beginning where he's going, "Bleh," fucking got me. Just the fucking. "Bleh,"
You were
and
fired,
him-
man.
I'm not fired. As my microphone's falling apart here. No, I thought that. I didn't think this was like. This is a campy, goofy. Like it's not meant to be taken serious and like sliced and parsed like we do. It's just like it made me laugh a couple of times. I could watch this show stoned and giggle through it.
I wanna
just
go-
don't.
so-
I could.
I just want to
understand
say
you.
this. You canceled the IT crowd because the first scene was like what's it called?
The
An
IT
SNL
crowd
skit.
lasted long. This didn't.
But you
another
said
thing
you
that-
said it was like an SNL
sketch
skit. Well,
comedy.
the beginning of this was like an all that skit, which is the same thing, only way more childish and worse.
Ferg,
Like,
also, I would like to
you were
point out that
definitely being a contrarian.
Gordo, you canceled the IT crowd because you were mad at somebody who went, ugh, and you're greenlighting this show because somebody goes, ugh.
Yeah.
I call
No,
bullshit.
no,
Hey, listen,
no,
everyone.
no.
We're not here. Everyone is entitled to their own vote at the end of the show.
Doesn't
So-
mean we have to. It has to
No,
fall
we don't
on.
have to agree. We don't have to
Yeah.
agree.
No, you don't have to agree with me. I'm just saying that I didn't think it wasn't great. It wasn't like, comedy gold, but like it can go a season. It can go a season for me. Like I can go see number 2, number 3. Maybe it gets kind of funnier.
It's
like-
number two, all right.
No, I'm just saying that it's not as bad as we're shitting on it. Like you guys wanted to shit on this since we first suggested it. Like you already had your mind made up.
Not Jay,
I'm just-
who is very excited.
And let me
picked this
also
show.
point this out. Joe, you watched the full season.
I did.
Why would you waste your time watching a show that you think is dog ass?
It was
I-
a
why
global
would you-
pandemic.
Yeah.
Why would
It
you
was a
watch dog ass?
Global pandemic. I had nothing else to do.
Oh, it's a global
I'll
pandemic.
I'll say this. I watched all of Country Comfort after we reviewed it, and
Which,
I thought the
why
show
would
was
you do that?
terrible.
Also,
Why would you do that?
us
to see how
More
it
making up-
ends.
curiosity.
us making up our minds about this show not being good is like making up your mind about getting punched in the face is gonna hurt. You know what I mean? It was so obvious out the gate that this was not gonna be good, and it wasn't. And
I'm greenlighting it.
I
Greenlighting
can't.
it.
I
You're
just
right
your
to.
credibility is in the fucking toilet cookies right now
Okay.
because I don't understand how you come up with these things. It's insane to me.
All right. So part of how I come up with this too is what I factor in is how long did this show feel? All right. So like part of like when you're trying to suspend
Like an
disbelief,
eternity.
sometimes the show just drags on and on and on. Like with the IT crowd, I kept hitting the screen, seeing how long I had till the end of the show because it kept dragging on. I didn't do that with this. That wasn't bad. It was just, it was goofy. It was, stupid dad joke humor. Like, I don't see why you can't greenlight that. I don't see why.
All right, so let's wrap this. This is a
Yeah,
long
Jay,
show.
what
I
about
still
you?
need to go.
What
So-
about you?
So I'm the last vote here. To peel back the curtain a little bit, I'm the one who recommended that we do this show because we're all wrestling fans, and wanted to do some content that was a nod to all of our friends who also enjoy wrestling that would work out with this show. I have watched this whole thing in the past before when it debuted. Despite all that, for all the reasons we talked about, I have to cancel it. And like we went into all of it, so I don't want to drag it on too much longer. The show was just made really lazy. And none of this again is to the discredit of the Big Show, who I really think could really succeed in a better position. But this show just I didn't think there was enough thought behind it. I think it was made for a younger audience than they aimed for, but I don't really think that even that younger audience would enjoy it the same way. So I have to cancel the show. So with that being said, only 1 out of 5 of us greenlight it, which I will admit I'm a little surprised that it even got the 1.
As you should be.
But we are all entitled to our opinions. I am sorry, Paul White, but the Big Show is getting canceled.
It's Paul White.
Want to see another day. And according to Netflix, it was canceled too. Netflix also decided that the 10 episodes was enough. But that's all we have for today, guys. If you want to watch the Big Show, you can still find it on Netflix. There are 10 episodes available. Check it out. Hey, why not? See if you agree or disagree. Hit us up. Let us know how you feel about it.
And send Gordo hate mail.
To find us, you go to S1E1pod.com. That is the links to all our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Also has the links to everywhere we can find us to listen in, like Spotify, Google, Apple. Give us a 5-star review, rate, subscribe, do all that stuff. It really means a lot. We can't stress this enough every week. Those things really do matter. Spread the word. Let other people know that we exist and that you want to hear us. Let us know what kind of shows you want us to do. We will keep all that stuff in mind. Guys, thank you for listening to another episode. Good night.
Well, the Big Show.